Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a general collective reading. There are no signs attached to it, so only take it if it resonates for you within the first couple of minutes. So just before we pull the cards, there's a very specific message coming in for someone. It's playing out like it's kind of coming through as like Cinderella, where there's sort of like whoever this reading is for, I feel like is for Cinderella, whoever that energy is. And it's kind of like Cinderella has been receiving attention from a prince, metaphorically, let's say. And it's kind of like after that happens, it's kind of like the evil stepsisters sort of find out about it, and they perhaps are behaving in ways that are very cruel, is how it's coming through. And what Cinderella may not know about this is that the prince had perhaps been sort of connected to the stepsisters in whatever way, but then realized that they were cruel and wanted to be friends with Cinderella instead because of her kindness, and had to sort of like cut off the stepsisters because they were cruel, is just how I'm gonna put it. And perhaps also, I'm just gonna leave it like that. But it may be that Cinderella is receiving sort of backlash unintentionally because the stepsisters, instead of sort of dealing with the problem in a healthy way, they are choosing to sort of like gain access to the prince through Cinderella, if that makes sense. So it kind of feels like there's someone here who's being like, their energy is being used to access perhaps like somebody else that they're connected to. And I'm sorry if that happened to you. Not fair at all. And that's just cruel behavior in my opinion. But anyways, so we're going to pull some cards. That was just one message. So just as a note, because this could also be applied generally, where if somebody is sort of like, perhaps like it feels as if they're using you, it could be that they are jealous of something that you have access to, is kind of how it's coming through. So perhaps you have access to something, perhaps even to someone, and they're trying to gain access through you, is how it's coming through. So anyways, we're just gonna leave that note there. I'm gonna pull an alchemy card for what energies you are working with at the moment. So what energy are you working with currently? The wise salt. I love that card. Okay, so it is talking about wisdom and also preservation, I think. Like something that is being used to preserve something for the long term is how it's coming through. So it does feel like you're working with a long term kind of energy. Hold on, let's read it. Wisdom, grit, and preservation. Wise salt is the sacred ingredient of preservation. In due time and with due experience, the alchemist slowly develops these granules of wisdom that can someday be passed to another. Salt retains, preserves, and absorbs. It brings complexity to flavors and grit to slippery roads. Such is the magic of the wise salt. Someone who carries wise salt is immediately recognizable. Their words hold meaning. Their stories are deep and true. They have wisdom that cannot be attained by any other means than decades of pain and pleasure. You may experience wise salt through the elders of the community. When this card appears, know that everything you are going through will be of use down the line. Alchemically, you're being brined. Preserve what you can, let go of the rest, and lean heavily on your elders. So wisdom is gained through both pain and pleasure is how that's feeling to me. Feels a bit more like pain today, but there is wisdom in that as well. Especially if it's coming through as being like somebody has caused you pain. So there was another sort of energy coming in, this from my personal experience, where I had the opportunity, which I feel like not a lot of people do, which is why I'm sharing it, that I had the opportunity like a few years back to like have a conversation with somebody who caused me a significant amount of harm when I was a child. And the only reason I engaged with that energy was because I was fairly confident that this person had gone through like enough healing of their own, and also that I felt confident that they weren't going to gaslight me about what happened. So that's why I engaged with that person. So what it was that this person told me about why they caused me pain, straight from this person's mouth, was that that they were jealous of the attention that I was receiving from the people that were around us. So that could be a message for you, because it is coming through as being like, the wisdom is that when people cause you pain, it is in a way their way of dealing with their own perhaps insecurities, or their own jealousy, or their own feeling of inadequacy, or that you have something that they do not, is how that's feeling to me. So that's sort of what it is that you're working with, the wise salt. It can also feel like, especially if you think about like putting salt on a wound, right? Like that, it could be painful. But that salt as well also has the effect of like sanitizing something, like clearing out impurities and things like that. So I feel like that's sort of the energy that you may be working with. Perhaps it is your wisdom that is wanting to be accessed. Perhaps something that you know, or your experience. Okay, how do we transmute this? Okay, that's not the right question. What are you being given access to? Sulfur. I did say that there was going to be discomfort. The sulfur card, that talks about, I often see this card as being sort of like having to swallow a bitter pill, but that there's healing in that. It also comes in with sort of like the energy of both, and it's kind of like, I feel like there's something where it's like, hold on, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we'll see. Interesting, because it's the next card. It's right after the wise salt numerically in this deck. Evaporation, up and out. Okay. So along with salt and mercury, it makes up threefold phenomena that symbolizes the uniting of soul, sulfur, body, salt, and mind, mercury. On a tactile level, sulfur is responsible for both the off-putting smells and the therapeutic properties of a mineral bath. It soothes and it stinks, literally. To understand sulfur is to embrace a both-and mentality. Don't be discouraged if the meaning of this card seems to evaporate before your eyes. For now, keep in mind that what is gross contains beauty, and what is beautiful contains its own demise. Sulfur's job is to push the geyser up and out, dissipating the pressure. Don't be surprised if what appears to suck or stink soon becomes a great gift. There's also this energy here of like, if you have, let's say, I sometimes see this card as being, again, it's a little bit gross, but like, if you get food poisoning, for example, if you ingest something that is harmful to you, the only way that you can get rid of that energy is to bring it back out, right? So it's kind of coming through like that, where it's, if you've ingested something that perhaps not ingested, if you've, okay, we're gonna stick with that metaphor, but if you've eaten something that perhaps was sort of like a food poisoning, it has to come back out in one or different ways, if that makes sense. Like, it has to like be removed from your system, and that could be sort of an uncomfortable experience, but that there's healing in that, where it's like perhaps something that you have taken in from whatever, your environment or from a past wound or whatever, is now being sort of like regurgitated out in a way that is perhaps uncomfortable. You're being given access to that, though, which is interesting. So you're being given access to a particular type of healing that does not feel like a healing. Is kind of like it's uncomfortable. And then what's the outcome of this? Vinegar. Okay, and you have copper at the bottom of the deck. This card has been at the bottom of the deck every single time I've stopped shuffling. Okay, so copper talks about, again, that's an energy of Venus, which is coming in with both pleasure and pain. It kind of feels like you're going through a pain process at the moment, like transmuting pain in whatever way that is. For you, it's going to be different, especially if you've received energies from individuals or situations that were not good for you. It's kind of like that has to all come out in some way, or that has to like be removed from your system in a way where it might feel uncomfortable. It is kind of coming through as like trusting the process, though, that it is going to be the pain that you may be experiencing right now is giving way to the pleasure aspect. It's kind of like there is kind of feeling like a expelling process. The tongue knows vinegar. Even the suggestion of receiving a few drops into the mouth reminds us of vinegar's sour and lip puckering qualities. In alchemy, vinegar serves as an active agent of distillation, fermentation, and preservation. It is incredibly useful when applied in the right amounts and with intention. This said, it can be easily overused, overwhelming the situation at hand. When the vinegar card is present in a reading, it indicates the sour note permeates the laboratory. It is likely something from the past is showing up in the present and demanding our attention. It is in vinegar's nature to take over, to overwhelm. Be cautious with this material. A little goes a long way. As they say, it is productive to look at your past, but not to stare. Such is the complex energy of vinegar. So you have salt represented and vinegar represented, salt and sour. And the sulfur card, which is right in the middle of it. So it's both salty and sour. That's not a pleasant combination of because both are very overpowering is kind of how it's coming through. Maybe there are like two energies that are competing for your attention. Interesting though that both are about preservation. The salt and the vinegar. Could be self-preservation. Why salt? You have butterfly in reverse. The sulfur, you have the camel card. And vinegar, you have the dragon. The crow at the bottom of the deck. So the butterfly in reverse is kind of feeling like there's maybe some sort of change that is difficult to make in some way, because it could be something where the past is very established, or somebody's experience or perhaps expectation is very strong, is how it's coming through. There's a frustration here. It kind of feels like with the butterfly in reverse, it's like there's a change here that is feeling like it is going against someone's wisdom or someone's experience. Like in their experience, this is how, or in my experience, this is how people have interacted with me in this way, that kind of thing. Or this is, I know this to be true, or whatever. I don't know what that could be. It does have to do with experience or preservation, or I do feel, though, that there is a change that is wanting to come through with the wise salt. But that it may... The change that wants to happen feels like it goes against what somebody knows through experience. Okay. The camel card to me talks about that is also an energy of preservation. So, something is being preserved. I feel like with the dragon as well, that does talk about ego, of seeing oneself clearly. And there may even be an overwhelm that's attached to that. An overwhelm about seeing yourself clearly. Perhaps through the eyes of another. Like somebody perhaps may be seeing you in a way that perhaps doesn't resonate with you. That could be good or bad. Or that you've never seen yourself in that way. And there may be discomfort about that. Or perhaps they're seeing you in a way that is something that you don't like. With the vinegar card. Because it feels kind of like sour. Like it puts a sour taste in your mouth, the way that this person's seeing you. Or perhaps the way that this person is interacting with you. Goes against your better judgment is how it's coming through. Which is totally fair. Yeah, that feels fair. There's a lot of wisdom in these cards, though, because you have the crow at the bottom of the deck. I do feel that you have something. You know something. Chariot as the first card. Yeah, that does talk about some sort of movement forward. But the Nine of Swords. There is anxiety about movement forward, or that a change that is approaching. Perhaps because it feels like it is counter logical is how it's coming through with the swords. Like your mind maybe, especially if it's something where it's like, it's coming through with like a narrative, maybe like a story that maybe you have been telling yourself as a form of protection, where it's like behaving in ways that protect yourself. Perhaps from a change that is needed, but also that it's uncomfortable, and perhaps is bringing up like old pains, or perhaps like forcing you to look at difficult aspects of yourself. It's also kind of coming through like this. So especially if you've encountered any sort of wounds or pain from the past, and you don't, like, before you sort of, the way that sort of comes through is that, like, sometimes the shadow develops, and it creates sort of like a narrative that we tell ourselves in order to help protect us, right? So like, and it may not even be true what it is that the shadow is saying, but that's how it feels, because it's kind of like, if somebody causes you pain, it's kind of like trying to rationalize why that person might have done something like that. Like, and that could be sort of internalized, like, oh, that person caused me pain because I did something wrong, or that I, whatever it is, that something like that can become sort of like an internalized way of processing pain, like trying to figure out why that person wanted to cause you pain when really it has nothing to do with you, is kind of how it's coming through with. It has everything to do with that other person, but sometimes in order to process difficult energies, we internalize narratives, right? Like stories about ourselves that may or may not be true. So it's kind of like, in order to move forward, we now have to sort of like look at all of the stories, perhaps, or narratives that we told ourselves that are not true, especially if they're geared towards more of a negative thing, like, oh, I deserve that kind of behavior from that person because I did something wrong, or, that it's that kind of like self belittlement or judgment, or self whatever it is, in order to like rationalize why somebody else caused you pain. And it's kind of like, you did nothing to deserve that. It has nothing to do with you or what you did. It's everything to do with how that person is behaving. Ten of Cups. That's what I'm saying. It's I feel like the truth is much more positive, but it may be that you are not aware of the truth of that. Like, it's like, I don't think positive is the right word, but again, with that story from my own experience about like somebody caused me pain because they were jealous of me. And it sounds kind of like ego to say that. This came straight from the person's mouth though. So I'm not like, that's not a narrative. That is actually true, is how it's coming through. So maybe somebody actually caused you pain because they were jealous of you. I don't know what it is that they were jealous of. That'll be obviously very specific to each person, but it kind of comes through like, I feel like maybe somebody is like having to sort through sort of like the swords that they have constructed that may cause anxiety or worry or frustration or protection surrounding some aspect of like how another person sees you, is how it's coming through. Especially people who have caused you harm, or who have tried to make you small, because it's kind of like if somebody is trying to make you feel small, that means that they feel threatened by some aspect of your power or your ability or your light in whatever that is, or your wisdom is how it's coming through, or your happiness perhaps, or your ability to persevere. It is coming through with perseverance, with the camel in the middle. Perseverance and preservation. It's kind of like you've preserved something about yourself. Perhaps you've preserved something about yourself that another person feels as if they have lost. Four of Pentacles. That's interesting. Yeah, it does kind of feel like somebody who feels as if they don't have enough of something. The Five of Swords. It is. It's kind of feeling like they feel like they don't have enough of something. And so they direct that energy. Okay, so it's kind of like somebody who has less than you in some aspect of your life. That's how they feel, is how it's coming through. They feels they have less than you of something. And so it's kind of like they try to cut you down to their size, if that makes sense. Because you are coming through as being you've preserved something that they lost. Three of Swords. And the Five of Cups. Okay, that's definitely feeling like that story. To start off this reading, there's been some sort of loss here, right? So it could be something. So if this is, I'm reading this as being sort of the perspective from whoever the Cinderella character is. It's kind of like you are receiving something, or you have preserved something. It doesn't have to be a relationship, but it could be for someone, where it's like perhaps you have something that the others have lost, right? The stepsisters, if we're going to use that metaphor. The stepsisters lost that opportunity, is how it's coming through. You now have that. And so because of their loss or their pain or their whatever, they are now trying to cut you down to their size so that you miss out on the opportunity that they lost, if that makes sense. And it's kind of like, why are they behaving in that way? Jealousy. Okay. What is this opportunity that you have? Okay, interesting. So you have Queen of Pentacles, the Hanged Man, Queen of Wands, Justice, the Star, Six of Cups. So it is feeling like some sort of like, it could be a collaboration in whatever way. A lot of feminine energy here. So it may not be a prince, it may be sort of like a queen kind of energy. You have, it's like you've, or Cinderella's becoming a queen, is how it's going through. And there are haters, is how it's feeling. People who missed out on that opportunity is kind of how it's coming through. They could have had what you had, but they were cruel. One second. I'm just going to pull one more card just to close off this reading. It does feel like there's a lot of healing energy that's happening at the moment, but that the healing energy might be an uncomfortable process because it's like whatever it is that you've taken in now has to be expelled in whatever way. And that might be an uncomfortable process. Otherwise, it's going to sort of like, I'm just going to describe it as food poisoning. It can't stay in your body, right? It has to be expelled in whatever way that is. The Worrier. I can handle whatever life brings to me. The Lustful. I embrace my individuality and sexuality as sacred gifts. Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna leave that there. If this resonated for you, please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.